Welcome back.
I blame that new moon for the tech problems.
Welcome back, everybody. Yes, welcome to the created economy. It's our weekly news show on everything happening in the creator economy. And we'll be bringing you a roundup of the latest news, some commentary, and an interview today with our friend Dmitry Shapiro from Koji. And also be doing deep dives. This is episode number 2. Ken, welcome back. How are you?
I'm good. How about yourself?
It feels a little hot in here. I feel like, I feel like we put all this time and work into preparing, and yet I feel not prepared.
Well, we're talking about creators, so we gotta come up with stuff. So we gotta be all creative with what we're talking about. So.
Absolutely. So just for quick information, format change update since last week. So Ken and I, took some notes, saw what worked and what didn't work. And what we're going to be doing today, the format structure is going to be, we'll be doing about 10 minutes of news. Then we're going to have a 10-minute Q&A part. So if you're out there in the audience and you want to raise your hand or leave a comment to have us react in some way, by all means, feel free to do so at about the 10-minute mark. Once we get to that, we will then be going into our interview, and then we're going to be doing something at the end, which we call, what did we call it?
Created After Dark.
Created After Dark. It's going to be sort of the post show. So it's about we're going to spend about 30 minutes after. So feel free to stick around to be able to come and ask questions and interact and raise your hand and all the fun stuff as well. I see you, Matt. I see you. So just for a catch up, we do go live on Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Mountain Time, 2 p.m. Pacific. You can find out more over at created.show. Ken, are you doing the banners today?
I can do the banners today, yes.
All right, there you go. Yeah, so we are currently live streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Clubhouse, and Twitter Spaces. So pick your poison, whatever is your best form of consumption. We welcome it. I see all the nice hands over there in Clubhouse. Thank you so much for being here. We will get to you in 10 minutes after Ken and I go through the news. I also see some hands on the Twitter Spaces. And by all means, tell us in the comments, where are you from, right? Like, we'd love to know. Tell us where you're joining from. And of course, if you have questions, feel free to post them there as well. Also, long form content, show notes, and everything else is available for you over at the createdeconomy.com website. So that's where you can find all the details. And while I have Ken do a quick introduction of himself, I will go screen share our deck.
All right, I'll give you 30 seconds. So hi, everybody. Welcome back for episode 2. I am Ken. I am the technology editor at Flipboard, which all that entails is me looking at everything that's going on in the world of tech, online culture, internet memes, all that fun stuff, and kind of really putting it together in a nice package for you to really to tell a story, right? And I've been doing that for several years. Prior to that, I was a reporter for VentureBeat and The Next Web, where I again covered startups, Silicon Valley developments, innovations, and tech culture. And I'm also a creator myself. I am a blogger. I'm a photographer. I am a prolific tweeter as well. So feel free to follow me on the big social platforms at The Ken Young, and we can go from there. And also, nice little plug for Flipboard. We are curating all of our articles. Everything that we're talking about today is in a dedicated Flipboard account. So you can go to flipboard.com/@createdeconomy, and you can follow all the news over there. Back to you, Greg.
Awesome. And I'm trying to figure out how to make this play in here. Okay, cool. That works.
We know tech.
Yeah. We are technologists here. So yeah. Hi, everybody. I am Greg. I'm a repeat entrepreneur. I've been working in the creator space for a long time. I started way back at Clout, where we're in product. Then I ran my YC company Shoot, which was a user-generated content platform. I'm also now the co-founder and CEO of Zealous, which is a live streaming platform trying to help creators make money by going live. And so thank you so much for joining us. And with that, let's jump into the news, Ken.
Cool.
So how do I do this? All right. So yes, wait, I need to share the screen again. There. That doesn't work. There we go. All right. So here's now I can see the contrast challenge that we need here. So this week we have like 6 stories that we're going to go through, but there's too much, honestly. Like, this is like the worst experience in the world trying to curate just a few stories to cover in this environment. So Ken, This was an interesting thing that we found, right? This just came out yesterday. The Information had an interesting article reporting on some surveys about how creators actually make their money. And the number one source by far, it was like 77.3%, was actually coming from brand deals still. Now, I will put a caveat on this, right? That this was an interview with 2,000 creators. They were predominantly Instagrammers. So inherently, most Instagrammers tend to make their money from brand deals because guess what? Up until very, very recently, you couldn't make any dollars going or producing content for Instagram. So any thoughts on this or what's going on?
So I think this is a pretty standard. I'm not actually surprised by the brand deals being so high, but it does tell me that there's a lot of opportunity for other ways to make money for creators. But if you look at traditional tech, right? I mean, a lot of the money isn't really made from the consumer side. You get a lot of money within the enterprise, right? You're selling to bigger companies, and therefore that's where you make a lot of your revenue. But similar for creators, right? You want to make the most money for putting out posts, for putting out doing videos or whatever. Like you're going to have to sell to big customers, or you're going to have those advertising deals or marketing deals. And you see there right here, 77%. That's a big amount. But that's also telling, like we're talking last week, we were talking about social tipping. You're talking about other ways to do it. And as we talk about the rest of this episode, there's a lot of opportunity for creators and for startups to help to create new avenues for this. So I'm very interested to hear what Dmitry has to say later on.
Oh, did I? What? I didn't. Sorry. Now, I do think what this represents, though, is an interesting inflection point, because we are moving sort of from this awareness advertising sort of based economy, right? Like I think that's where the brand side sort of really flourished. And by the way, the brand side is not going away. It's not that there's not going to be lasting value here over time. But I do think as we're starting to transition a little bit, what we are going to see is a rapid rise in some of these other platforms coming up, right? Like where tipping, memberships, subscriptions, affiliates, all these other things are going to actually probably increase, because the customer base, right? Sort of the access economy, as I like to think about it, where creators are negotiating access, is really the powerful part. And we're seeing so much happen in this arena. So watch this space, because I think there's going to be a lot happening over time. So let's go to our next. We got some Instagram news. Ken, I think you're up first.
Yes. So we're talking about Instagram. Instagram in a couple of weeks, they're going to host their first what they're calling a creator week, right? And basically what that entails is this is an invite-only event, week-long event, where you're going to have thousands of fellow creators, and it's all dedicated to Instagram. This is nothing new for Facebook, right? Facebook's been known to have these type of gatherings, and usually they've been in person, but of course with the pandemic that you can't have that. So, but they might be bringing some folks in-house to a specific venue. Anyway, so the point is that they want to encourage creators to build on Instagram, whether it's through Reels, whether it's to better to create their own businesses over just Instagram in general. This is what they want to do. And as you look at what everyone's been, all these other platforms, they're in a real tough bind, right? And Instagram is fighting off TikTok. They're fighting off Snapchat. They're fending themselves off of YouTube, whatever, Patreon, Clubhouse, all these other things. There's a lot of these guys that are coming out. This years ago, it would have been a lot easier for Instagram to be like, okay, we don't necessarily need to do this, but they need to be out there. They need to show off all their stuff, all their wares. And we're going to probably see some new announcements that are going to come from there. But I mean, in terms of what's actually there, again, it's going to be invite only. So a lot of the sessions will be private. So who knows what they're going to announce.
Now, by the way, in case you don't follow us already on Twitter at Created Economy, Ken is live tweeting out the links to these articles as we cover them. So by all means, check in over there if you want to see those. What's our next story, Ken?
So our next story is also very similar to Instagram, and I would imagine it would probably be.
Did I label this one wrong?
No, you didn't. No,
okay.
It's actually true, because it's actually buried into this story from the Information. So the Information had an interview with Instagram CEO Adam Mosseri, and so the point of the headline of this story is basically about Instagram kids, right? And the thing, and everybody knows that Instagram's been running into some problems with, a kids version of their app, right? It's like, oh, do you really want to put kids up to this type of pressure, social media pressure? There's a lot of things like, how they look. They don't need all this stuff. They need to just be kids, right? And so Instagram's like, this article is like, Instagram's like, look, we're going to keep doing it. We're moving forward, no matter what Congress or lawmakers or regulators say, right? They're going to keep doing this. But what you don't see here in this article is that the information asked Adam Mosseri is like, are you going to be doing a creator fund? Now, we talked about last week that there's this whole notion of creator funds, right? And there's all Snapchat has one. Facebook's tried one, has done one for Black creators. Now, will Instagram do the one in general? Again, they're facing a lot of challenges these days, and that's not off the table for Instagram. Whether or not they will actually do it remains to be seen. However, what Adam did say is that they will be toying around with some new ways for creators to monetize their product, their creations, their content, and that could very well include tipping, which everyone else has been doing. And what's very startling about this, or is this admission from Adam saying like, look, Instagram is behind all these other platforms in terms of coming up with ways for creators to monetize themselves. And so this Creator Week that's coming up in 2 weeks, in the beginning of June, will be very telling to see how well are they actually putting forth that effort to cater towards creators and to rebuild and to strengthen their offerings against TikTok and Snapchat and YouTube.
Yeah. There's a lot of catch up to be done here for sure. So this is that third article for you, Ken. I think you picked this one out.
Yeah, I did. The topic is that the headline of this article is the influencers are burned out. And this is like no surprise, as you get all these different types of platforms that you gotta work on, and there's a lot of these new creators sprouting up. It's like it's hard to garner attention, right? So how do you do that? Is there a way to do that? And a lot of these influencers are probably finding themselves really burnt out because they're like, look, you got to top whatever you did before. You can't just do the same thing over and over again. Otherwise, why would people pay attention to you? So in order to get more attention, get more views, get more traffic and deals, like you gotta one up whatever you just did, and people are finding like I just can't do it anymore, and so they're just bowing. They're like, we need to take breaks. And I think the message to take from this to our listeners and our viewers is if you're a creator, if you're an influencer, like learn to take care of your mental health. And take breaks when you need to, because there's no point in burning yourself out to do this. I mean, you can always come back to it, but your mental health should be your first priority.
The analogs between being a creator and being a founder cannot be denied. So I think if you have any founder friends out there, I highly encourage you to talk to them because you might learn something in the process as well. So we got some more news. Let's move on. Up next, we got some news on Twitter. So what do we have going on today? Oh, guess what? You're about to be able to get paid to do spaces.
Wow.
So they're beta testing this feature now. I don't know. I haven't personally met anyone who's actually, got access to this capability, but it was announced that they'll be taking a 20% cut for ticketed spaces, which will be coming soon. Now, I did do a poll on my Twitter, not very official, but I asked if people would pay to actually access a space. The overwhelmingly was about sort of 60% said no, but I did ask and inquire about why you might pay for a space. And it turns out that knowing who the speakers are ahead of time, maybe a certain very vertical niche, was another opportunity or thing that people may be interested in. And one interesting feature that I found really compelling was potentially the idea of being able to preview a space before, because since so much of this content is real time or ad hoc, being able to know or hear what you might be getting, sort of seemed like a valuable asset or resource in the conversation. So I think, interesting ideas there. Let's see how it goes. I'm not sure if I would pay for that many spaces, but, I think there are definitely things that could be worth it. Now, on to our next bucket of news. We have some news about Snapchat, or actually a couple of articles about Snapchat, if I remember correctly. Number one, guess what? Social tipping is back. Now Snapchat is announced that they will be joining the fray. So coming later this year, as they say, Snapchat will have social tipping as well. So you can tip people in the process. I've updated the graphic, by the way, so we'll have that up on our website. So if you're looking for our social tipping infographic, feel free to head over there. Or I guess this is a chart technically. We don't know what percentage is going to be taken yet. They didn't announce that in the article, and we also don't know when it will be live or what eligibility requirements will be there. But we look forward to hearing more about it. Snapchat is massive. I'm not personally a user, but I think they believe it just crossed like 500 million users or something like that. I saw an article about as well.
500 million monthly active users. That's the first time they've ever released monthly versus daily.
Wow, that's insane. So yeah, Snapchat has not gone, but there's a lot going on in that ecosystem for sure. And on the other side, just kind of closing the loop here on our creator fund sort of concepts. Snapchat is actually changing its fund model now. Previously, in case you didn't know, they were giving away $1 million a day to get people to use their new sort of TikTok competitor feature. And they've sort of rolled back some of that capability now. So they're not actually offering up direct access to that same amount. Now, they promised that they're going to they're still going to be giving out some money, but it's not going to be like the same amount with that same sort of cadence, right, that they've talked about. So we'll see what the impact of this is, I think, in the long term on sort of how much content people continue to push through that format. But, I think as we talked about last week, the reason for these funds ultimately is to incentivize usage of new behavior and also to retain creators. And so everyone should always remember that as part of the process. Now, what else do we got? Oh, by the way, yeah, we're about to end this part of the show, but if you have reactions or questions or comments, now is the time. Raise your hands. But if you wanted the links, just in case, right? Highly recommend that you head over to the Created Economy Flipboard, which is at right there. Ken may share a link again to it, but it's at flipboard.com/@created economy. You can find the link to that on our website as well. All of the links that we look at actually throughout the week automatically are going to end up over there. So you have an opportunity to, of course, find the links that we're looking at, and then, of course, find the links from each individual show as well. So any comments, reactions, thoughts out there? Who's got a hand up that we should? Oh, wait, what happened to MySpace?
Wait, did you say MySpace?
Not MySpace, but my actual space. Any hands, questions? Wait, I'm in my own Twitter space twice now. I don't know how that works. Clubhouse, any thoughts? And if not, we will continue along with the show, which may work out because we're running a little behind schedule. Dmitry, if you're almost ready, we're going to have you up in a sec. All right. So my Twitter space keeps crashing on me, so I can't tell if that's there. But anyone in Clubhouse, any questions or thoughts that you'd like to ask, feel free to raise your hand. I'll bring you up and you can be involved. Why don't we bring Dmitry into the stream? Did you have any comments or questions about our news that we've just recently gone through very quickly?
First of all, I love the show. I'm honored to be on, the second episode of it. The first one was great. Let's see if we can make this one as good. Yeah, I have lots of thoughts on it. First, it sounds like a big mess.
There's a mess would be a decent word for describing it.
in my old age, I'm trying to be more and more decent. Yeah, look, I think that as these very powerful companies, and then hundreds of tiny companies in the creator economy, each try to sort of carve out their own little niche, and each sort of compete for the attention of creators and for the attention of creators, followers, and everyone's trying to get people to stay within their network, and because there's only limited ability for human attention and hours in a day. I think this is what's creating all of this sort of thrashing that we see now. So it's an amazing time to be alive because anybody can be a creator. If you're trying to be a creator, it's so much work to try to put this stuff together. Forget making money and all of it, just being able to use all these platforms.
Absolutely. So by the way, Andre is up on stage in Clubhouse. Andre, did you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, I had actually listened to a number of interviews from the Snapchat CEO, about this process that they were going through. And I was just kind of curious to see, do you think that LinkedIn will join in on, allowing people to charge for, their live streaming as well? And is this just kind of be a part of every social platform going forward, that tipping will be a part of the process?
Well, tipping definitely is already a feature of basically every major platform. The social platforms are not that original, I guess, is probably the main takeaway, right? So if you look at it horizontally, tipping is basically everywhere. Look at even the history, right? Stories, right? Like think about that. Stories is a horizontal technology now, right? Every platform has stories. Live streams is essentially a horizontal technology, right? Every platform has live streams. Every platform will soon have social audio of some sort, right? Like it'll be a horizontal technology. Eventing, I believe, is almost fairly horizontal. Not all the social ones have it, but like Facebook has it, LinkedIn has it, et cetera. So I imagine that we will see more monetization tools continuously being added to the ecosystem. And to Dmitrys' point, this is creating a lot of thrashing in the system. And we'll get to this topic when we actually talk a little bit about Koji. But I think there's interesting challenges and opportunities in sort of the diversity of tools and the ecosystem's rapid growth, right? And it'll be interesting to talk to Dmitry in a moment about where it goes. But if I was to guess, Andre, my guess is that yes, absolutely, LinkedIn will certainly turn on its own Eventbrite-like capabilities. The events that we can currently list will eventually become paid events. The live streams will potentially probably get tied up, just like Twitter's doing. What are they calling the thing, Ken? The paid Twitter?
Oh, Twitter Blue or something
Blue,
like
right.
Yeah, something
Twitter
like
Blue,
that.
YouTube Red, Snapchat Yellow. So whatever.
It's like the Power Rangers or something,
It'll be
but
LinkedIn Light Blue. I don't know, but I imagine there will be sort of a paid. And by the way, LinkedIn recently turned on what they called creator mode, which I'm still trying to get. But it's sort of like a different way to express and render your LinkedIn profile with that orients what you put out there more from a creator mindset, I guess, or sort of provides more opportunities for linking in content. So who knows?
I mean, Greg, I think the thing with LinkedIn though is like, and I agree, like, yes, I think they will follow suit with everyone and roll out some sort of a social tipping or anything like that. I mean, think of it. That's where you have that it's all about professional social network, right? I mean, it's all professionals, right? And this is where you're going to need where people can actually make revenue for specifically like whether you're a consultant, a freelancer, or creator for the enterprise or business space or marketing or whatever. This is an opportunity for you to do that. This is where you're going to get your customer base. You versus something doing it on Instagram or Snapchat or TikTok or Twitter or anything like that. The problem though, like I think with LinkedIn, they've been typically slow in terms of implementing these type of things. Like they announced live streaming more than a year ago, and like this, they still haven't really done anything in terms of live video.
They've also been sort of bad. Right?
Well, this is also true, but I mean, maybe that's deliberate, but also the capabilities, but behind
Wait a minute. Are you suggesting there's an intentionality in deliberately making bad things?
Maybe. I mean, it's Microsoft. Come on, go figure, right? No, but the thing with the even if LinkedIn does it well, right, and they, depending on who they have the powers that be, I don't know what their roadmap is, but if they do it well, they have a lot of that backbone there, right? I mean, you could do eventing with whether in person, it's fine. You can do some sort of Eventbrite, but if you want to do a virtual, I mean, come on, they're going to power it through Teams. They're going to leverage all the presentations through Office 365 and everything like that. I think I wrote a post about the integration between LinkedIn and Microsoft a while back when they got acquired.
I hadn't considered that, but I guess.
But there's a lot of this. There's a lot of the
in a very SharePoint-y, crappy way. Like I imagine this.
Really, you're saying SharePoint? I think we need to end this show right now. Like, how dare you mention that? Like, I don't feel bad of mentioning the word synergy now, okay? Because you mentioned the word SharePoint. Like, come on. At least mention Yammer, right?
Hey, all right. Yammer also. My wife did work there. Full disclosure. All right. Well, Andre, thank you for your question, though. So my guess, yes. Dmitry, your guess? Yes. Yeah, you got thumbs up. Ken, yes. So I think it's going to happen, my friend. Thank you for asking your question. We appreciate you being here. I'm going to tuck you back into the audience, though, while you're here. But we will have more time at the end. So please don't worry and don't mind. We're going to have a nice window at the end for everyone to chat and ask questions of Dmitry as well. Wow, what are all his comments? Okay, so Dmitry, welcome to the interview. I need to make a slide to do the transition. Are you actually at a WeWork?
No, but I just realized on camera that I've been busted for
I was going to ask you about
stealing this WeWork cup.
I mean, how do you actually walk out with a coffee cup?
I don't think they track that stuff. I think it's okay. They've raised like $1 bajillion. I think it's fine.
Oh my goodness.
Although Dmitry, you stealing that coffee mug is probably the reason why they're so in such financial difficulty right now. I mean,
by the way, so I didn't actually steal it, but I did walk out with it drinking coffee and was too lazy to bring it back. and then pandemic hit, kinds of excuses.
But you're going to return it. Well, you're going to return it later when after the pandemic's over. We know
someday.
We know.
Yeah.
Someday. Yes, exactly.
For our friends who can't see us, by the way, let's do a quick introduction here. So this is our friend Dmitry. Actually, Ken and I are both friends with you, like from before, and just randomly discovered that like you were building this amazing company called Koji. Do you want to tell us a little bit about you and what Koji is?
Sure. I'm an old nerd, is the way that I've kind of been describing myself lately. So Koji is now the company called Go Meta that owns Koji is 4.5 years old. Before Koji, I spent 4 years at Google on the main campus, working primarily on social products. Prior to that, I was the chief technology officer of MySpace Music. Before that, I built 2 venture-backed companies. One was a competitor to YouTube called VO Networks, raised $70 million for that, got sued out of existence by Universal Music Group. Interesting story. You guys can Google it. We won the lawsuit, won 2 appeals, but ended up getting killed. Prior to that, I built a cybersecurity company called Iconic Systems, raised $34 million for that. And then from 95 to 99, I built the web team at Fujitsu and kind of built all Fujitsu's infrastructure then. Got into software development when I was 14 years old in 1984. After watching the movie War Games, and that's what got me hooked. And my first love was actually cybersecurity. And again, I got a chance to do that for 5 years with Iconics, but since then I've been doing consumer stuff and whatever. And now working on Koji, which I'm sure we'll touch upon.
Tell us what Koji is.
So it sort of riffs off of this discussion you guys were having during the news segment, right? Everybody now wants to be a creator. For years, the number one answer of graduating kids, what do you want to do professionally, is I want to be a YouTuber. When you add other types of creators, this year it's over 50%. In the West, in Asia, people still want to be scientists and astronauts and all that. We in the US all want to be creators. And you can judge us for it, but I say let's not judge us. Let's lean into it, okay? It's a noble cause. It's valuable to be a content creator. It really is. Yeah, we shouldn't compare it and say this is more valuable than that.
When AI wipes out all those other jobs, what's going to be left is creativity, entertainment, and education, right?
Mic drop. There you go. Okay. So everybody wants to be a creator. We love social media. We spend more than half of our time on mobile inside of social media and messaging, right? People say gaming is huge. It is. It's 9%. But social media and messaging, that's over 50%. That's the majority of our time. Okay, so it's important. Everybody wants to do it. And we've got all these tools, hundreds of companies in this creator economy, all these big networks and all their programs, new stuff going on every week. There are reporters just dedicated, right, to just tracking all of the new advancements in this thing. But if you're a creator, your head is spinning. You are already extremely overloaded with what you can push out. And so all these new tools, you can't do anything with them. Something's got to change. And so we believe that kind of what we see now, all of this activity is happening in what we're sort of calling Creator Economy 1.0. Lots of innovation, lots of interesting ideas, primarily built as individual companies. So there's a company called Cameo, right? That's a unicorn. You can think of it, if you sort of try to digest Cameo and say, well, is this a company? Is it a product? Is it a feature? You could go down that path and say, well, you could describe it as a feature. And the feature is allow, your fans, supporters, audience, whatever you want to call them, allow people to make video requests of you, requests for custom videos, and be able to fulfill them. That's Cameo. Fulfill custom video requests. Right. OnlyFans could be described as a feature. Sell premium images and videos, right? And you could actually go through the entire creator economy, and if you look at it from that lens, all of those things actually just look like features, and some very small features. But because they have to support an entire company, the company has to add all of these other things to it. Like if Cameo was just fulfill custom video requests, that would be easy. But now they've got like all these other features, because that by itself is hard to just do as a business. And so anyway, so we are sort of seeing this. And over the last 4.5 years, we've built this platform. We came at it from like this really windy path. We had no intention of being where we are now until we found ourselves there in market and people saying, oh my God, you guys have built this platform for Creator Economy 2.0. A refactoring of creator economy. It all centers around the link in bio. Think of the link in bio as being a launcher that you face outward, right? Like Steve Jobs in 2007 gave us a launcher in the home screen and an app store. So each of us can choose what apps we customize our launcher with. You can think of the link in bio as being a launcher that's facing outward, that I offer to the world as a menu of how you engage with me. And an app store where I choose what modules I add to that launcher to allow people to engage with me. One of those modules is a module that allows people to buy custom video request fulfillment from me. Check. It's a feature. Another module allows you to buy custom, premium images or videos. OnlyFans, that's a feature. A module that allows you to buy ebooks and fonts and whatever. Gumroad, that's a feature. And now there's a bunch of these. And anyway, so this Koji is sort of looking at it and saying, the future is a launcher with an app store of apps that are created by third-party developers. Today, our developers are the primary developers in our app store, but the next phase is to really scale our tiny little developer community into hopefully as large as those developers that are developing for Android and iOS, right? Each one of these launchers, iOS and Android, has over 4 million apps for us to choose from to face us. This one right now has just over 100. And we feature just a few dozen. Soon there'll be many more. I hope that makes some sense.
It does.
Yeah.
Go ahead, please.
I mean, it's absolutely fascinating. Dmitry, like I remember years ago, we were in Austin and I was walking down the street and I get this ping from you. I'm like, hey, where are you at? I'm like, oh, I'm just walking down the street going wherever. Say, hey, join us. I think it was at the Hyatt, right? At the hotel. And you and I and your coworkers, we had this engaging conversation about what you were doing previously. And it was all around the concept of the metaverse, right? And it's just like creating new words. And you've like you said earlier, you've been in the social space, you've been in this creator space for some time. How have you identified these trends to eventually come up with Koji, right? And I want to dive a little bit deeper in terms of like the concept of the LinkinBio principle, but how did you come up with like what have you identified to say like this is kind of where I think is a solution needs to be present?
Yeah, look, it's been a really interesting path. Again, we couldn't have charted it, but I can describe it to you. So I left Google in August of 2016, and Sean Thielen and I, my co-founder, started building this platform called Metaverse Studio, which was, at that time, Pokemon Go was huge. And we said, we can make it easy for anyone to build these augmented reality experiences, meaning without writing any code, to arrange, we call them scenes and blocks. Scenes are visual elements, blocks are logical elements. And you can arrange scenes and blocks on a storyboard, configure them, and voila, using your phone or tablet, you can project, in a sense. You can see using AR Core and AR Kit augmented reality experiences. They can interact with you, and you could program them. Anyway, we launched it, raised $6 million for it, got a bunch of teachers primarily using it. It's still in market. We did that for the first 2 years, and then learned a lot about kind of the power of what we built, and then some things that we would do differently in the future, and decided to leave that running, literally start a whole new code base and build a completely new platform. And that platform is Koji. So we started doing that almost 3 years ago now. The sort of fundamental idea of Koji when we started was that when people tell you that they want to build something, how do they say it? They say it's like this for that. It's like Uber for dog walking. It's like Airbnb for people who have music recording equipment sitting around doing nothing, right? We call it subtractive development. People describe it, it's like this, but I would change it in this way. And that's what we found in Metaverse, is even though we gave people this amazing no-code environment that they could make things, and even grade school children could do it, the time required to do it was the problem. It wasn't the difficulty, it was the time. And the number one feature people asked for was, can you just let me take that thing that other person built and change that around? Can I clone that and change it around? And instead of doing that, we decided to build a whole new platform. Okay, and not pay any attention to AR or the need to have any apps in the App Store. It was clear to us 3 years ago that the web had come a huge way in what you can do on the web. And this belief that you need to build native apps for anything is not logical anymore. And so we decided to lean completely into the web. There is nothing Koji in the App Store. And as far as I'm concerned, and Sean is concerned right now, there will never be anything Koji in the App Store. The web is powerful enough to bypass the app stores. We do need things to render the web here, but every app now does that. Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, all have web views built in. Certainly we all have browsers. We don't need to install anything else. Anyway, and then as we sort of continue to go down the path, we found ourselves we built this platform that allows anyone to very rapidly create these web applications, allows people to clone them and modify them and relaunch them. Built an app store that allows people to monetize that, developers to charge for people using it, in-app purchases, identity, receipts, notifications. And then we realized, look, we've actually just built sort of a virtual operating system. It doesn't care about, is it on iOS or Android or desktop or whatever, as long as there's a browser to render it. It has similar features to like iOS core services. But when we went to market and said, look what we've built, this thing is amazing, you can create these interactive posts to share on social media anywhere, because everyone supports links. People kind of struggled with it. They experimented with it, but they struggled with it. They couldn't, and we couldn't understand what they weren't understanding until for a couple of months we saw the really successful people not use this as interactive posts, but add this to Linktree, beacons, over whatever, 4 dozen more of these LinkinBio things. We had no interest in LinkinBio whatsoever. We're paying no attention to it until we were looking, saying, wow, the people are actually seeing these as like modules to add to these links in bio. And we decided to spend a week and build our own. And so that's what we did. So we built our LinkinBio offering that, we propose as the most powerful LinkinBio offering in market. I'm happy to debate with anyone that wants to show me otherwise. We built that in a week using the power of Koji. The rest of it took almost 3 years, 2 3/4 years. And so now we're in the LinkinBio game, and people are like, how are you different than Linktree? And we're like, well, this took a week. This took almost 3 years.
Yeah.
This is an operating system. This is a launcher. We have a launcher. We give ours away for free forever. We will never make money on the launcher. I think we just killed the business model for the LinkinBio space, which today is a freemium model. You pay for small customizations. It'll be interesting to watch how that space develops.
Yeah.
Because we don't think you should charge for the launcher. Launcher is free.
Now there is so Linktree just raised, they're raised a ton of money.
Mm-hmm.
Actually the category, right? Just but yesterday Beacons announced they'd raised some more money, et cetera. And I hear you on the customization part. What is the promise that those folks are making to their investors, right? Like, or to the space, I guess, as a whole, right? And how does that interact or sort of comply with sort of like where Koji's going, I guess, as well.
Makes sense. Yeah. Well, so what's the promise that they're making? I assume would be the one that we believe in also. There is a need for a canonical U for the hub. DmitryShapiro.com points to Koji.2/Dmitry. The link in bio is the modern social mobile version of About.me, or GeoCities, or MySpace was that for people. Something you might put on your little business card if we still carried it. What is that one place? If I find you on TikTok, how can I find the rest of you? It's really interesting now that we're in market. We see people sort of daisy chaining their accounts, where my TikTok links to my Instagram links to Snapchat.
Web.
This is silly.
Yeah.
This isn't the right way. You need some hubs. So in this space, by definition, there's only one, meaning for each individual. It's really valuable real estate.
Now, I think I was going to say, though, I agree with that absolutely, but I actually think the part that you're ahead of potentially, my guess is that they've raised largely or fundamentally around the notion of commerce of some kind, right? So the page was table stakes, but I think the store is actually where it's at, right? And can you like tell us a little bit more about sort of the economics, creator economics, like not just like I get sort of at large, but also, of course, inside of the Koji ecosystem?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the way Koji works is any developer, third-party developers. Again, today we are the primary developer in the store, but it was built from day one to facilitate third-party developers. And there's a couple of dozen, maybe 3 dozen now, independent developers out there developing things. We've actually poached 3 of them from our community. They started in the community. They did great work. We said, hey, come do it with us full time. So anyway, so developers can create these mini apps. They're just full stack JavaScript, modern day JavaScript applications, put them into our app store. We run our own Git server. We're like a micro GitHub, and these are just Git repositories, okay? And then when they publish this app, they specify, some metadata about it. Some of that metadata is this app available for use for free, or do people have to pay to use it? And 2, what are the fees that are taken off the top that are then split between the developer and Koji? The developer keeps 2/3 of the fees. We get 1/3 of the fee. But the developer specifies what the entire pool is. And then the creator gets the rest.
Like, let's say,
sure.
Like just dollars, or maybe one of the ones you've made.
Sure.
I know you actually offer, you don't take any fees, right?
Well, let's talk about that. So apps that we publish actually vary in fees. Our tip jar is 0 fees. Why? Because first of all, people should keep their tips. And 2, that's the competitive nature of it. You can get 0 fee tip jars in places. And so our approach is we should always be lower or equal to whatever is out there. Cameo charges 25% for fulfillment of custom video requests. Unless you're doing it on iOS, then they take another 30%. Okay, but whatever, 25%. Our version of Cameo, in a sense, it's not called Cameo, it's called Shoutout. We think it's even better than Cameo because it records your reaction when you're watching it, if you allow it to do it. You don't have to install anything, whatever. We take 5%, 25%, 5%. Our standard fee that we take, if we don't sort of we just throw one out, is 15%. Because OnlyFans is 20%, Cameo is 25%, 15%.
Is that
with the general lower
credit card fee too, or is that all bundled in?
Yes, exactly. Today we don't charge additional for credit card fees. Yeah.
Now, there's another fascinating aspect to your economics inside the system. I remember, and I would love for you to explain this to folks as well, because there was sort of a downstream payment too, right? So you have Koji has creators in the software sense as well on its platform, right? So to some degree, normally, we see large creators going out and building software and then launching these standalone apps. And the theory here, I think, is that, well, one, you could potentially find a creator, a software developer, to develop an app that has horizontal appeal, because they say, I'll invest my time because I believe a lot of people could benefit from this software, and I will charge a small fee, like a utilization fee almost, right, for leveraging my software, right? as opposed to sort of necessarily like a value-based thing, right? Like you're sort of like, every time I help you. But also if people start to clone and copy and reproduce, it yields more downstream revenue even to that person, right? Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yes, except for...
Or is it gone?
It's gone. It's
right,
gone.
Forget it. Don't get old. You remember too many things.
No. This is great. It was fascinating. I'm glad you remember it. We might bring it back. For now, it was just blowing people's minds. And so we've been like chopping things down.
Right.
To say, let's pause all of these new amazing ideas. Let's just win on refactoring creator economy. Well, let's start there. Then we'll get into the
positioning in the App Store. I think is very succinct. It's very clear. Like the website, I think does a great job of communicating it. Before I'll let Ken get one more question. Then I'd love to be able to go to Twitter Spaces, the Clubhouse, or anyone out there watching in the video to also ask a question before we jump into sort of our free talk at the end of the show. But Ken, did you have one more question?
Yeah, I did. Well, I have a bunch more questions just talking to Dmitry. I guess this is the beauty of our show. I mean, just there's never enough time to ask all the questions. Dmitry, you raised up an interesting point earlier on in terms of like creating this hub for creators, right? And you look at what Twilio and Burner did back years ago, where their whole thing was centered around the phone number. The phone number was that core element, right? You look at whether it's Yahoo or Gmail, the email has become that unique identifier across the web for a lot of people, right? And obviously, way back in the day, was a lot of different variations of usernames and everything like that. You have done something different, and I'm not saying you're similar to you're similar to Linktree or anything like that, but what the core of what you've done with Koji and your app store is very much that bio, is that social media profile, is that front page. And you talked about is the modern day Aboutme, and many of us had that page. I still actually have it. I don't use it for anything. It's just real estate.
It's go away.
Well, it's just there, right? It's
right.
There's nothing you can do with it. It's like it's that yellow page thing. It's like, hey, this is my advertisement on the web. It's good for SEO. So can you talk me through like can you elaborate more in terms of using that profile as that hub, right? But that bio specifically as a hub, whether you're on Instagram, Snap, Twitter, TikTok, whatever. And also, what are you seeing in terms of the trends for this app store? Because that's going to be a huge part moving forward, especially when you're platform agnostic, right? You're not dependent like, okay, so I can't use Clubhouse because I don't have an iOS device. So, but then I can't use Twitter Spaces because I don't have this and this. Like you're so dependent on these platforms and everything. You look at what Apple's fight with Epic Games and Fortnite. And you're like, look, just cut through all the BS, and we're just giving you the tools regardless of whatever you want to do. It's very similar to what Greg's doing with Zealous, right? It's like you're available anywhere. You're multi-platform. You're not dependent. You play well with everyone, but you're just not dependent on them. Can you walk us through like, and also last part, it's like a 3-part thesis question here. Like, how do you? That's it. How do you encourage, what are you looking for apps, like to have developers and also creators get involved in this? Like, how do they participate? And I'm done.
Okay. As you said, we all still have our About.me pages, perhaps our WordPress blogs or our Tumblrs or like all these things we've done. But they're abandoned. Why did we abandon them? Because we did our best to add some content and change some, UX. But at the end of the day, there was nothing else to do. With WordPress, you could argue there are like these plugins, and some people sort of hack WordPress to do all kinds of things. But it's tedious and it's not sort of made for the masses. This ability, so the desire to have sort of a canonical place to point people, whether they access it, address it via phone number, we support that, or email address, we support that, or URL or custom domain, all of that, you should be able to get to it in any way you want. Link to it from all your links in bio. If I find one of you, I can always find all of you, right? The rest of it. So there's an obvious need for this. It's a utility. It's really valuable for many, many people, not just sort of serious creators, but like just people who use social media. And if you use multiple platforms, this is valuable. If it could be extremely self-expressive, meaning customizable, this is super valuable. People like that. We all wear different clothes. We've got spiky hair, you know. Anyway, so that's a desire. What's been missing is this ecosystem to support the expansion of this that is focused not on a bunch of nerds using WordPress to do whatever, but on like regular cool people that are social media creators that have all kinds of constant needs to engage audiences, new ways of interacting with each other digitally. And we think that if you point the developers of the world at that problem and you give them an economy that supports that, meaning they're creating valuable things, they need to be able to make money. And we think that the model of the App Store works. People understand it. Developers understand the value of filling up a new App Store by serving the needs of, the demand of the market. We support similar things: charge per app, in-app purchase sharing, auto updating, all that stuff we expect in an app store. We give that to web apps. And obviously this leaning into the web is critical, because when you do not have a footprint in the app store, there is no way for the powers that be to get in your way. Like some people have tried to sort of do both. I've got this native app that I'm going to reroute some payments around this web stuff, and then the app stores say, nope, you can't do that. We know that game. We're agnostic to all of it. We're just the web, and sort of available everywhere. And so look, and for developers, I think, again, I could go sort of more deeply into what the motivations are for them, but I think they are very much things that they already understand, which is there are lots of people that need your stuff. You know how to write code. Let's do it.
But there's certainly a lot of lightweight value to be created, right? And offered without having to start, say, necessarily like a full company.
Totally.
Point, right? Like around
radically simpler. Our Cameo alternative, let's call it that, shoutouts, was built by one developer in 1 week. Okay.
That's awesome.
So when you can go compete with unicorns with one developer in 1 week, what if you had 20 developers? What if you had 1,000 developers, 1 million developers?
Makes sense.
When you don't have to build these things as companies, when you never have to write authentication again, or push notifications, or payments, or receipts, when you don't have to worry about any of that stuff, you're just writing new, interactions, UX and stuff. Like it's radically simpler. The cost to sort of value equation is super fascinating in this new environment. It hasn't existed before.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And can you give us some details in terms of like how many apps you have and like the traction you're seeing?
Sure. Yeah. So in beta, we had just over 70,000 creators, unique creators that created just over 400,000 of these mini apps and shared them on social media and experimented with them. Since we launched our LinkinBio 6 weeks ago now, we have just over 10,000 unique creators there, and the revenue flowing through in the low tens of thousands a month now, through these things, tip jars and fulfillment of video requests and premium image lockups and things like that, growing organically and compounding. So
awesome.
So yeah, it's a thing. By the way, you guys saw it. It took a long time to get here.
Yeah,
and by the way, investors that took big risks.
Let's talk about that in the after show, actually, because I will. I think it's a very interesting topic here. But while we have our before we close up the sort of formal part of the show, anyone out in the Twitter universe or in the Clubhouse universe that has a question, by all means, raise your hand. We'd love to bring you on stage and have you ask it or speak to Dmitry. And by the way, if you are watching right now, here we go. What, Ken? Why is your cousin giving us an angry emoji?
Oh no, those are my parents. And
and on that note, yeah,
let's get to questions.
Being a creator is a thankless job. Let's just Andre, please, from Clubhouse, you are up. Do you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me up again. I guess my one question would be, can it be used to like build or interact with a larger community? I recently came across, I believe it's Luma, LUM.MA, and just wondering how it would compare to something like that. So, to where using it as a way to interact with your larger community.
I'm sorry, is that a question about Koji versus Luma? I unfortunately don't know what that is.
LU.MA, Luma, those guys, they were the Zoom guys originally. I forgot they allow you to create like paid Zoom events.
Yeah, you could do like events, newsletters, and community analytics type of stuff.
Yeah. So look, so in our world, these types of things are, again, these mini apps that you can add to any link in bio, meaning people add Koji mini apps to link trees and beacons and every other link in bio. That's how we even learned about the spaces, just by watching our analytics and saying, what is this thing referring traffic? Oh, it's another link in bio. It's another launcher. So we've got these mini apps that people create. I don't know exactly what that is. I'd need to spend a bit more time looking at it. But there are people that are creating mini apps that allow you to, gate either content or access. So there's a Koji called Lock Photo or Video, which is like OnlyFans. You can sell premium images or videos on demand, right? There's one called Link Locker, horrible name, I think, and another derivative, I think, launching next week that is called
Locker Link,
generally called Access My. What is it called? Join My Video Chat. It's a paid Join My Video Chat, and so you can lock up any Zoom conference or Hangout or video chat, basically a velvet rope, and people pay to get access to it. So there's a bunch of these Kojis. And by the way, there's new Kojis that are showing up every week. We've got over 24 that are just waiting for sort of product marketing packaging that are queued up for us to review. We need to get better at being able to process them through. So we've got a bottle now.
Can you explain what that process, like what happens if someone wants to make an app on Koji? What happens?
They write the code, again, full stack JavaScript. They upload it into our system, meaning they publish it as a template. Sometimes they start from one of our scaffolds, and then it's already in the system, and they just fork it and develop and publish. Or they might start off our platform and then give it to us. And again, they fill out a form to submit it, and then we do some automatic sort of profiling of it, looking for various things. Does it load? Does it load well? Does it have any errors? Things like that, content audits and things like that. And then, sometimes we say, hey, let's make it look a little bit prettier. Maybe this needs a little better icon or whatever. So we try to help third-party developers do it and also our own developers. We're like, hey, this is cool, but it could use like some product marketing love. And so that process right now at Koji has a lot of friction. That's where we're blocked. But anyway, there's lots of new things coming out constantly, and that's accelerating. So by the way, if this other one doesn't yet exist, some developer could go and say, let's build it. Or the company itself could go do it. In a few weeks, I think it'll happen maybe in 3 weeks, at the longest 4, we'll be announcing the first set of partners, creator economy companies that we already know are minifying their offerings and making them as Koji mini apps.
Super cool.
That give them access to their services directly on people's.
Have you seen any Koji jobs offered on Upwork or anything yet? Koji developer jobs?
I have not, but we should probably look around.
You need to put that job description template up as well, I think, then, huh?
check it out on like Fiverr or something. You can specialize in it. But
totally.
Love it.
Yeah.
Are there things that you, and this is something that every app store has to contend with, right? And are there things that are specific apps or types of apps that you would not allow in your marketplace?
Yes. Meaning there are already, I mean, we haven't seen them, but you can imagine people creating all kinds of things that cause all kinds of havoc. Crypto miner, it's JavaScript. You can do all kinds of things with it. Okay, so there's something, that's why we have that automatic profiler that's looking for some stuff, right? So those kinds of things. But look, at the end of the day, this is a UGC platform. By the way, people can publish these things. We control our app store. What gets featured, what you can find, versus what exists as a permalink that can be used. These to us are two separate things, right? And again, as we mature better and we understand better, like how we need to sort of deal with these things, there'll be sort of more, rigor in place. But today we look for, malicious things and filter those out. But again, we really haven't had that problem yet, knock on wood, because we're a skeleton crew. So by the way, we're hiring. We need to hire across the board to be able to start to do these things.
That's excellent. Well, Andre, I hope that was helpful. One last chance for anyone on Twitter Spaces, if you have a question or a comment that you'd like to ask of Dmitry or any of us before we just wrap up this part. But we are going to stick around to have a more informal chat. I don't see any hands up. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring this back in, right. So thank you, Dmitry. We're going to wrap up this portion, but doesn't mean you have to go. But just in case you're out there listening, next week, well, actually, our calendar is already booked through June 30th. So the next one, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 5 episodes are already booked. We got Neil Robertson from Influence.co coming up next week. Matt Zuvell from FamePick on the 9th. Alex Typo Risenkampf from Get Vocal. And then we got Fernando Parnas from Superfans, and we have Mike Donahue from Subtext. And if you'd like to be a guest, head over to creativeeconomy.com. We have a form there for you to put your name in the hat. We'd love to have you. We are looking for more creators, more diversity. We love all the amazing people who volunteered to speak, but we know that the space looks there's so many different kinds of people and voices out there. We want to hear from more of them. So by all means, please don't be shy. Reach out to us and come on through. And with that, we're going to end just this formal piece of the show. But then check out this.
Ooh la la.
Do the after dark part. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stop recording in just one sec. But thank you for being here with us this week. In case you do have to go, this has been the Created Economy, where we take a deep dive and look at what's happening in the creator space and the economics of it, with myself, Greg Narain, and my co-host and friend Ken Young. And thank you so much, Dmitry, for being here with us. Now let's go into the fun part. This part's a little more open to conversation and discussion. So what else, do you think we didn't cover, Dmitry, that you're really excited about and you hoped we did get a chance to talk about?
Look, I think we're entering the sort of inflection point, I think, of innovation. We're all connected to each other now. Back in the day, we had an issue with social graphs. And so we needed to build social graphs. There was a bunch of noise in social graphs. We were still trying to get our algorithms right on what's important, what's not important, like how to route things to people, right? Some people didn't know how to use social media yet. So culturally and sort of etiquette was question mark. Now everyone is getting really good at social media. And again, now it's clear that this can be a really valuable thing, like meaning you can make money with it if that's what you want to do, or you can change the world with it, right? This is a massively powerful thing we're sitting and, sort of controlling. But again, we sort of got here and now we look around and we say, there are some really good ideas here. We should be able to have subscription layers. We should be able to have, gating of content or real-time events or whatever. We should be able to have crowdsourcing of content from our fans. There's like countless things that we now have seen glimpses of, but they are all because they're generation one things, aren't all that usable.
But
right?
is it still very much like which point in time do we start to see things kind of just stop becoming like the Wild West, right? And I mean, it's like, and where do we start to see a little bit of order in terms of like what do people really want from, to promote themselves, right?
Yeah, look, I think that it's certainly becoming clear to, let's call them early adopters of social media. People have matured to some point where they've sort of gotten to a level and say, okay, this is no longer sustainable. I need to move up the stack. They have realized that they need to be the network, that the biggest value is in their own network. Having the phone numbers and email addresses and push notifications to their fans, where no adpocalypse, no change of algorithm all of a sudden can disrupt their business. You can't lean in and quit your day job and lean into becoming a creator when randomly, meaning seemingly randomly, not in your control, some algorithm change can radically impact your business. You can't build on ground that's unstable. The only way to have stability there is to own your own network. What does that mean? Well, the simplest version of it, we think, is this single page website LinkinBio thingy. And if you can take all these networks that you're using, engage people there, but in the spirit of routing them up into your canonical network and getting them to say, yes, I really want to subscribe to you, not just on TikTok and Facebook, but globally. That is sort of the foundation of it. And then what the features are that you choose to provide and engage with people at, that is an ongoing, let's call it Wild West. But maybe I can answer one other thing, but going back in time for a moment. I started pitching VCs in the middle of January 2005. YouTube launched in April of 2005, 4 months before, on the idea of VIA. I was going to make it easy for anyone to broadcast video on the internet. I had already raised $34 million for a prior company.
That was a terrible idea. I mean,
horrible. I pitched less than 2 dozen, more than a dozen. So let's say 12.5 VCs, mostly, professional big funds, and they looked at me like I was crazy. And they're like, I don't get it. Like who would want to make videos and publish them to the internet? Why would they do it? And if they did it, who would ever watch that? Like, who would watch an amateur? Like, it costs millions of dollars to make something good. You can't just point the camcorder at something and make it good. And then finally they said, even if you can do all of that, like, there's no money. Brands can't just go advertise on user-generated content. They're concerned about their brand. They can't, they called it garbage content at the time, not even user-generated, on this garbage content. Okay, today we live in a radically different world.
Yeah.
And because of that, again, the modern day creators who are smart have realized that they need the them network, the you network. That's the most important network. And then everything else is just feeders to it.
So question, we previously looked at, and by the way, if you want to come up and join the conversation, you're welcome. Just raise your hand. We're happy to have you. Join us in on the chat. We showed this chart before that the information posted. I'm curious where, two questions actually here, I guess. One, in this new world that you're describing, what do you think the sort of shuffling of this sort of chart looks like, right? Mm-hmm. Like as we normalize across the space. And this was a question actually I got asked by an investor, which I'm curious what your thoughts are, how you might respond to it, where, is this sort of like destined for a massive roll up sort of situation, right? Like, so is there just going to be one company that does all of this, right? And I gave a fairly lengthy answer, but I'm curious, what your thoughts are, and happy to share mine.
I believe this one gets expanded in different types of bars that you will have here, new ways that people are generating an income from these things. Two, I believe this thing gets a lot sort of fatter in the mid tail, of sort of the long tail of creators. Today, brand deals come to the cream of the crop of creators. Why? Because it takes time to structure a brand deal. And if you're a brand, you need to go talk to people that have the influence and give you the reach you need. You can't talk to all these micro-influencers well and be able to get their time. There isn't a good way of sort of buying even real estate on these things. Back before there was, Google AdWords, right? And before AdSense, if you wanted to place banner ads on somebody's website, your biz dev guy contacted their biz dev person, right? And then you structured a deal and you sent them a check or wired them some money and they slotted you in. And Google said, no, this is stupid. Let's make it a self-serve model so anyone can just buy, in a sense, real estate on people's websites. We need that for the creator economy. How can all these nano influencers get their tiny share of brand dollars? We're working on that. We just launched a thing called Billboards, which is the beginning of that, where you can buy, allow people to buy real estate on your LinkinBio. So brand, I think advertising changes in that way. And then again, for most creators, the money doesn't all have to come from brands. I think Kevin Kelly is completely right in the sort of 1,000 true fans, right? And we're seeing that now. There are people that are making not yet millions or even hundreds of thousands of dollars, but there are people who are making thousands of dollars a week on Koji, from their fans, supporting them completely voluntarily. There are people getting $500 tips. Yep.
Wait, they're getting $500 tips?
Yep.
Because we're talking about.
I don't want to disclose, obviously there's a bunch of privacy stuff, so I'm not going to tell you who they are, but I can give you generic stuff. Podcasters, coaches, celebrities. Maybe I can put it to you in this way. If you're a creator and you are obviously passionate about something, you're creating content about something, let's presume that there are some people out in the world that your content connects with, and some people that it really impacts, and some people that it impacts so deeply where it sort of meaningfully changes the trajectory of their life, where all of a sudden they get an idea from listening to you, or they get inspired, or whatever it is. And now all of a sudden it's because of that pivotal moment that happened when they were watching your content that their life changed. And when they have an inability, because they've never met you, to be able to express that to you, they feel frustrated. When you put a little thing on your profile that says, hey, if you want to say something, you can say it. And if you want to leave me some money, you can do that. You'd be surprised. I mean, people obviously are. There are people you've touched that want to say thank you. And by letting them do that, it helps them. Forget that it gives you $500. That's great too. But it's much more important to allow these people who need to do that, to say that. And I think people misunderstand it. It's not about monetization. I think it's the opposite. It's about creating new interfaces for us to be able to connect with each other in deeper ways and more nuanced ways. You see, I can say all day long I could message you on my tweet saying, oh my God, guys, you changed my life through your show. Or I can send you fan mail or whatever, but nothing says it like writing you a little note and giving you $500. That you feel more deeply than somebody just commenting and putting 100 exclamation points afterwards.
Well, I thought we had someone. Sorry. One of the interesting parts of the audio and video based streaming is that sometimes people just start talking randomly. And I'm with you. By the way, if you do want to join the conversation, feel free, just raise your hand. Happy to have you. Joseline, I see you there, my friend. Feel free to unmic, join in and chime in wherever you feel comfortable or open to it. So Dmitry, I like this point that you're making, that it can change sort of life, but I guess like we all know that we can have impact on individuals. How do you see sort of the career of being a creator sort of like standing up, right? Like there's obviously a lot of aspiration to become a creator, but I think a lot of those people maybe have the false vision, a false dream of those seven-figure deals that we sort of get glorified, much like in the startup world, right? Like everyone wants to be a freaking founder, right? Like here's the reality. Most founders, like they have a horrible life and they wouldn't recommend it to most people, right? I imagine that's how a lot of top creators also probably feel, right? They feel like constantly like they're at work, they can never turn off, they can never hide from anybody, et cetera, right? It takes a long time to get to those kinds of deals and to that kind of revenue. So most people are going to have a much more, I think, what was that? I seen one stat that, the average creator, most of them can't even make minimum wage still today, right? Now, I believe that's changing fundamentally, right? Like, and a lot of things like Koji and other forces and factors out there are helping move it along. But what's your thought, sort of in the evolution? How long is this like actually a career that people, sort of can really look to it for?
I think this is arguably, I feel like this is sort of like the most long-term career you can have, right? Meaning, if you have something to say, if you have something to add creatively to the world, and you're creating content, and there are some people, sometimes it's giant numbers of people that love it, and a bunch of big sponsors show up and give you seven-figure checks. That can happen. And if that's what you love to do, make that kind of content, that's amazing. If you're making that content just to make money, you're going to burn out, and you're not going to be able to do that long term. But if you're making content that you love, that you care about, talking to people that you connect with, that love you, we will never run out of a need for human interaction and creativity and content. Storytelling arguably is the most ancient thing of that we do that's valuable, right? So I think today, again, we have this like tiny percentage makes a lot of money and everybody else makes almost no money. And so I'm really excited about creating the middle class, of creators. That is coming now. It's happening already. Like I said, these people do not have sponsors, right? Nobody's sponsoring them, but they're making thousands of dollars a week from fans.
But it was unimaginable. This was unimaginable, right? Like, I mean, we were old enough to remember, like, it was like get enough followers so you can get a brand deal. Like that was always it, right?
Yeah.
And now, certainly, I think I think there are creators being, formed right now that are entering the space that have no aspiration of working with brands.
And I say they shouldn't.
I agree.
Because you see, when you have to fulfill somebody else's desire. Now, if it's completely aligned with yours, and periodically I'm like on some clubhouses.
It gives you the power to choose, right? It gives you the power to choose.
Yeah,
better.
Yeah. Periodically I'm like on a clubhouse or whatever. Somebody asks like, how do I get a brand deal? And my answer is always, you get a brand deal by figuring out what brand you really love, and by starting to create content about them. When you do that, that will come off as authentic. That brand is going to notice. You will email them and say, hey, watch me, I'm a big fan. And if you're creating great content, they're going to say, yes, we want more of it. Here's a bunch of money. That's how you get a brand deal. Now, is it going to be seven figures? Not if you have 50,000, subscribers. But that's okay. That's not the point, right? Not everybody can make seven figures. Not everybody needs to. Okay, so I think that this middle class thing, that is happening right now. We're seeing it. We're in this inflection point renaissance. That is going to change things massively because it will really give people the ability to lean in, invest, hone their skills with ability to invest time and financial resources into content. That's what makes the content even better. And now's the time.
So Dmitry, I want to talk about this, like for creators that they're just getting started. Like for example, like I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm going to go full on and I'm going to quit my job and do this. And if anyone's listening, I'm not quitting my job. So relax. Let's not cause whatever. But no, like I want to go and be a vlogger full time, right? Or I want to do all this. I want to get myself started on Koji. I want to update my, take advantage of my bio and monetize that thing. What advice would you give to creators on things to choose? Because we look at back in the day when you had MySpace and everyone went all super crazy with their styling and adding all these little widgets and everything like that. Same thing on Facebook. Hey, I've added this widget here. And WordPress, I have all these other things. And you realize at the end of the day, like, okay, maybe I didn't need this particular SEO thing or this but it just sounded like it'd be cool to feature on there. Like, how do you pick the right apps or the right features that you need to do in order to monetize or to optimize, not really monetize, but optimize your game? And then also the last question I want to ask is, you talked about this creator economy 1.0, and we've been around long enough that we know Web 1.0. At which point do we get to 2.0, and what would that look like?
And by the way, we do have one more question from the audience from Clubhouse. So after that, then we'll get to that, and then that'll be our last question.
Yeah. So how do you get to 2.0? Well, obviously these are all sort of arbitrary lines that we've drawn as creating these constructs. What we're calling 2.0 in creator economy is, instead of sort of having all of these companies provide tiny subsets of features and then try to sort of build entire companies around them and sort of like pull at each other and creating all this fragmentation. Once you start consolidating that and saying, no, there's just things that I add to whatever, my launcher, to my LinkinBio, and that's that feels like this sort of refactor, the next phase, consolidation, refactor of creator economy. So that's what we're calling creator economy 2.0. The advice I would give people that are starting to create content or become creators is do it. Don't wait. Do it and experiment. We have this really interesting thing. We just implemented Mixpanel a month ago. In fact, I think today is a month, and it's been fascinating watching all of these behaviors of people, now that we can track them individually going through and doing it. And we're seeing these really interesting patterns where there's some subset of people that, create a nice LinkinBio, publish it, and sort of leave it there, and then sort of don't touch it. There's another subset of people that do it, that experiment and do it. And then there's another subset of people, meaningful, okay, about 20% in our case, that do it often. They do it sometimes many times a day. Go back and experiment, tune. Sometimes they just change what the string says in their tip chart. It's not called a tip chart. It says, if you'd like to say something. And then 2 hours later, they'll change it and say, if I've done something that you like, please express yourself. And they're measuring this. And because each one of these things has its own built-in analytics, and then if you want, you can actually add any third-party analytics to each of these, you start to get into this amazing ability as a creator to do the things that like big networks used to only be able to do, was to basically do A/B testing, multivariate testing, and really tune this up. And so it depends on if you like doing that kind of stuff or how much you care about that, whether you do it. And periodically see tweets where like, oh, this is reminding me of what I used to do with MySpace, spending hours tweaking my profile, sort of obsessing about what I do with it. It's a form of self-expression. I've recently said to a friend, the LinkinBio is a new art form. It is. It's a new art form. It's amazing. Again, we have internal tools that give us dashboards to see all of these profiles at scale, kind of like Pinterest. And it's amazing to go through and watch what people do with the same module and how it looks radically different and behaves radically different, just depending on what you named it, or where you put it, or what your profile is like. Greg, I think I can't hear you.
I was going to say, I was actually curious. Are you already testing sort of like variants on the LinkinBio? Kind of like if it's if I'm coming from Instagram, render it this way,
No.
or is that a thing you think you might do?
Definitely.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, it makes perfect sense, right? There's a unique optimizations that you can do. Like platform by platform has their own sort of psychology as well, right? So That's very, it's a 3-dimensional cube for testing.
By the way, I always find it so frustrating talking to you. Here's what I mean by that, because every time you're asking me the right questions of like, hey, we should do that. I'm like, yes, we should do it. I need more people like you saying we should go do it. But you're an entrepreneur, I'm an entrepreneur, and this is why our ships are always sailing in this direction.
This is why we always stay in touch and keep chatting.
Yeah. But yeah, look, there's so much stuff you can do with that.
Yeah. Very amazing. Well, we are at our 30-minute mark. Thank you all for joining us today for our inaugural-ish episode of Created After Dark. Oh, look at that. It works in this if we do it that way. But this has been a lot of fun, Dmitry, and we really, truly appreciate your time with you being here. What I really like about Koji ultimately is your point of view on the space is completely different than anyone else's. Like of all the players I know in the space, I do not know anyone who sort of has this quite this innate understanding sort of the ecosystem. And so I truly value it and appreciate it, because I think it is a very nerdy version of the universe, but it makes sense, right? Like nerdy in a good way, right? Because people don't necessarily appreciate how nerdy creators are also, right? Like it's one of the natural and awesome things about being a creator is actually getting to geek out and go very deep into things. And what Koji's doing is I think is showing them new ways and opportunities to apply their craft. And not just to monetize. I think like we spent a lot of time in there, and obviously the nature of this show is about that. But not all Kojis are for money. So I just want to make that clear. They are also for about interactivity and for engagement and for driving insights and for deepening the relationships that you have with your fans. So there's all of these other purposes to Kojis. And I think I wanted to make sure that before we left, we had a chance to make sure that was clear. Monetization is certainly very important to creators, especially as we forge forward towards a creator middle class. But that is not the only reason. And I think ultimately what creators know better than anyone else is that building strong relationships and communities is actually what leads to, revenue and commerce, right? So not the other way around, right? And so that's what Koji actually was doing first. And that's what it will continue to do, I'm sure. So
thanks so much for having me. Thank you.
Really appreciate it. It's been a wonderful opportunity, and we hope you'll tune back in and at least join in and throw tomatoes at Ken and I in the future.
Absolutely, guys. I love the show. I'm thrilled that I got to be part of it.
Our first guest was awesome, and it was completely accidental. And so I just made a few quick pings afterwards, and you were the first person that I pinged because I thought it would be such an interesting way for people to think about the space. So with that, thank you so much, Dmitry. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dmitry.
Take care. See you guys.
Right. All right, Ken. So let's just wrap this up real quick. Thank you, everybody. This has been amazing. What a wonderful conversation. Dmitry is truly extremely smart, and the whole team at Koji is as well. Ken, any closing thoughts before we wrap up?
Look, I think episode 2 in the bag. I think it's been really great. Like, if I tweeted this out at the after we got done talking to Bart last episode, is like my mind was just racing talking about what's going on in the creator space and in social tipping and everything like that. And just talking to Dmitry, it's like, okay, he's not looking at it as just like a LinkinBio type of thing, as like, oh, this is the low hanging fruit. We'll monetize that, and we'll get acquired and we'll walk off and start something else. It's not one of those, oh, launch a startup, sell, move on to the next thing, right? It's not a flip technology type of thing. He's actually building something that's really fascinating in terms of this app store, this with the data behind it to really empower to creators to optimize their experience, right? And it's like, we're not talking about monetization as you mentioned. It's more about optimization, right? And various ways of optimization, from social to financial to whatever. And I think his background MySpace to Google to talking about the metaverse. It's absolutely, it will play a real big part in shaping the future of this. And his philosophy behind the creator economy 1.0 is worth digging into. And I'm looking forward to seeing what happens to get to us to that 2.0. So, it only goes upward from here. And with next week, I can't wait.
Yeah, so next week, just in case you missed it, we will have Neil Robertson. He's the CEO of Influence.co. It's an amazing company. It's been around for quite some time. One of the early pioneers in sort of managing and tracking sort of the influencers themselves, and sort of it'd be interesting to get Neil's take on the same chart of sort of revenue and how this plays out. So just to wrap up, by the way, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for playing along in our experiment of trying to be on Twitter Spaces, Clubhouse, and of course, Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube and LinkedIn all at the same time. In case you want to find out about future episodes, head over to created.show. That is our official show page. It has a list of all the upcoming episodes. You can also learn more about all of our long form content. We'll have the show notes up hopefully in an hour or two once we get this all processed up. But over at createdeconomy.com, we do some long form content there as well. So we encourage you to check that out. And if you don't follow us already on Twitter, certainly, don't forget the Flipboard, which has all of our links. So Ken and I will tell you honestly, like I said, the hardest part is that there's so much news in this space every week that cutting it down to just a few to fit into sort of the first 10 minutes of the show is actually proving to be quite challenging.
Well, Greg, I want to tell you something. Like, as we're talking, and to your point, literally 2 big pieces of news just hit.
I saw at least 4 like in the hour before we got here that I was like, oh, I want to put that in, but I was like,
no, I mean, you're talking about that. Like, Twitter just previews.
No, don't say it.
Next week. You can find the articles on our Flipboard magazine. How about that? That you can go from there.
A good idea. So thank you, everybody. Thank you from me, Ken.
No, I mean, good God. I mean, this has been great. Thanks everyone for tuning in, for submitting questions, and thank you, Dmitry, for an amazing conversation.
Yeah, so definitely check out Koji, and we will see you all next week. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.